We have forward motion on the Farm Bill with breaking news out of Washington, D.C. Plus, we're going to talk about predictions for H-2A farm workers and a lot more on today's episode of the Arkansas AgCast, which starts right now.
You're listening to the Arkansas AgCast, where we discuss the latest news, trends, and issues impacting Arkansas farmers and ranchers. Our show is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau Federation and hosted by Jason Brown and John Nickman.
Hi, yes, it is that time again.
It is.
It is Thursday morning. So we are putting together your favorite weekly agriculture podcast.
Yeah. So what are predictions with a D?
I was really hoping
You know something
you
I
would
don't?
pick up on that. Look, I'm not a great orator, as they say.
You've got a lot of practice,
Sometimes I mispronounce words. And should I have stopped and started over? Yes. But today, you get the raw.
Pushing on through, baby.
Pushing on through.
Yeah, we got a long one today. So
reads, you're right. We've got a lot. We've got a lot to go over today.
You've had a lot of successful openings over the last year and a few months, almost a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, you're gonna mess up. I wouldn't say you messed up.
Predictions. If that's the worst thing I say in a year and a half, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's the theme of the podcast. Predictions.
I do have some grand idea to have a blooper reel.
I've always thought that would
just
be a good
one
idea.
Oh,
blooper show.
Yeah.
Just of all the mistakes that we've made.
I'll watch a pretty regular video segment on YouTube, and the guy who does it, he's a RV technician. It's always just kind of maintenance and stuff. And he's at the end of every video, he's like, "Okay, now here what you're really for." And they do a video a week, and they end every video with him having bloopers and messing up. And I guess whatever keeps you around to see the whole video.
What's the guy that the old professional fisherman? Is it Jim Dance?
Bill Dance.
Bill Dance, yeah.
Yeah,
Always wears
buddy.
a Tennessee hat. Man, his blooper reels of like shutting fishing poles in the tailgate or falling off the boat or something like
Always
that. They're all
wrecking
really
his
funny.
shins on the trailer hitch.
Yeah.
Bill
Falling in the
Dance.
mud.
I've never seen a guy who people took so seriously, like real deal, but would just goof up all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's falling in the water out of his boat, like everything.
Yeah.
That brings back the world was a much simpler place, wasn't it? Back when
it
Bill
was.
Dance was popular.
Yeah, I think my brother watched every one of them. So
Yeah.
it was.
His bloopers are really funny.
There's one I'm thinking of right now where he's riding a four-wheeler and he gets clotheslined by a tree branch and it totally takes him off the thing. My gosh, I'm going to have to go watch some Bill Dance bloopers now.
Yeah.
But hey, people took him serious. His fishing show on Saturday morning.
No, yeah.
Big deal.
He was real popular.
And he's still around, I think.
I had several friends that had all of his VHS tapes.
Heck yeah, buddy.
Yep.
Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a ton going on. I was telling y'all before we got started that I was looking. Sometimes if we don't have a lot of kind of non-news stuff, I'll kind of look around the internet, see what's going on, keep up with pop culture, and I pull up, what happened this day in history, and the first thing I see is this day, May 2nd in 1933. Was the first reported sighting of a legendary creature. Curious if you might have any guesses to what that may have been.
Well, I've already.
He's able to cheat.
I
He
know
can look
he
down
can
and see.
cheat. He can look
No,
and see.
I can tell the future.
It was not in
so-
this country.
Oh, Loch Ness.
Loch Ness monster.
Okay,
What was the Loch Ness monster's nickname? Or is?
Old Nessie.
Nessie.
Right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if the old was part of it. I don't
That's
know. I just
if
felt
my
like
son-in-law were here before you said not in this country, he would have gone Bigfoot.
Bigfoot,
'Cause,
right?
He's big on Bigfoot.
You've got a colleague who's big on Bigfoot.
Do I?
Up in your department who I've had several conversations with.
Well,
been on the show before.
Yeah, probably. We maybe weekly, if not like every other week. It gets kind of slow. There's one particular office we all kind of gather in and talk about conspiracy theories in our office. Specifically like UFOs and Bigfoot.
The truth
funny.
comes out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's a very high level discussion though. It's a room full of economists. So.
of course,
course.
Yeah.
it would. I would
Yeah.
expect no less.
Yeah,
But
I mean, why wouldn't it be?
But it'll get carried away.
Well, to that end, I kind of thought, there's some, I'll say, local lore around, not the Loch Ness Monster, but these kind of creatures or even phenomena, we can say, here in the state of Arkansas. Can you name any of them?
Well, Bigfoot's been spotted over around Mena, right?
Bigfoot?
The Queen, Mena?
Yeah,
Like that.
that's not Arkansas specific, but I think it counts. Do you think you ever?
I think I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
No. As a kid being at deer camp, I've probably heard like a bobcat or something scream in the middle of the night.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no,
But people take that serious.
Oh, think
The
about
Bigfoot
it.
deal.
That's one comment
what-
I'm going to make about it, and then I'm going to be done with it.
Okay.
There's too many game cameras out there in the woods now. Too many.
Yeah.
And there's too many hunters out in the woods now.
We
to
would have
just-
seen him by now.
Or maybe the ones that saw him aren't with us anymore,
maybe so.
See, these are discussions we have in my office. So. But yeah, if he's out there, great, grand. But it's really hard for me to believe it.
I'm thinking about the Falk Monster. Have you guys ever heard of him?
I have, but I don't really know the story.
They made a movie out of it, I think, at some point. I'll say back in the day. I know that's a relative term, but not a creature per se, but the Gurdon Light.
No.
You never heard of this one?
Uh-uh.
It's on train tracks, I think,
Yeah.
where you can see a swinging lantern coming down the tracks at night or something like that.
We had a road like that outside of Stuttgart.
Did you really?
Yeah. You flash lights a few times, and all of a sudden
Somebody's
it's
supposed
more-
to run across,
or somebody else is supposed to flash their lights at you, but it's supposed to be like a ghost or.
oh
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, that's what I was asking.
I don't.
there
There's
any
no real
more-
name of it or anything like that.
Okay, it's just
It's probably just
the flasher.
dumb high school kids.
I don't know. I don't really get into that stuff too much. So I've exhausted my expertise. I'll say
The high beam bandit.
with the high beam bandit. That's one of those things that goes away with technology, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all's trucks do this, but mine turn on their high beams on its
Yeah.
own and
Yeah.
turn off. It's
Yeah.
like that's one of those things that that's not even possible anymore. Kind of like cell
Right.
phones killed a lot of thriller movies because it's like, well, you're not stranded out in the woods
Yeah.
without a phone anymore or
true.
whatever,
Right.
whatever that may be.
when I was learning how to drive, so we had a van, and I was wanting to know how to turn on the high beams. So my dad had convinced me. He was driving. He said, "So I'm going to teach you how to turn these on." And he grabs the top of the steering wheel and mashes on it, and the high beams come on. I'm like, "Oh, cool." He goes,
Yeah.
"All right, I'm going to make them go off again." And he mashes it again. They go off.
Yeah.
So later on in the evening, we swap out, and I'm driving, going down the road, and I'm mashing that thing like nuts. It won't do anything, and my dad's just laughing, and he finally lets me in on the secret.
I want to know if you're old enough to know what the secret is.
I don't. I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
Are you really?
Yeah.
You don't know? He doesn't know. I thought that might be the case.
It is the case. So
Pull lever?
no,
No.
even better.
Remember, you're up here.
Yeah, hands, both hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
So, it's all sleight of hand,
Yeah.
tongue in cheek. So there's a button on the floorboard that you used to mash with your left foot while you're driving. You can mash it with the left foot and it would make the high beams come on.
Oh, okay.
So he's sitting there just clicking that thing, just laughing to himself. And I'm just a sucker. And he's like, "How are you doing this?"
Yeah.
it's magic.
Because
That's great.
At
That's
one
a
point, he
great
took
joke.
hands off the wheel. He goes, "I'm going to do it again with my mind." Like, God.
I love that. my grandfather had a pickup truck and a Bronco, I think, like a 76 or so Bronco. And both of them had that little metal, silver
It was.
Yeah.
foot button.
So what would be the newest or latest model that still had that button on the floor?
Oh man.
Did it in the 70s,
it wasn't the
80s?
90s.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I don't think it was the 90s. It would have been.
Maybe the 80s.
I think in the 80s, because that was when I was driving. It was in the 80s.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. You know what I miss about that era of vehicles too? That triangle window
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
that you could just kind of
Pop open?
pop
Right.
that lever and you go.
yeah, this one had.
Golly, man,
You direct the air in your
we
face.
need those back.
We were high styling, man. We had a custom VHS, like with a little mini TV and stuff
Oh, in the
there.
back?
Yeah.
Those
It was-
is a conversion van. Is
Yeah.
that what
Oh,
they
yeah.
call them?
Yeah, conversion van.
Oh,
Yeah.
the back seat would
Yeah,
lay down.
It was great. We went to Florida in that thing so
We
many
had some
times. It was
cousins
awesome,
who had
man.
one. I'm like, God, we have one of those for these long
What
road
were those
trips.
seats? What was the cloth that were on those?
Velour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or like
velour. Yeah.
Chantilly lace on the roof. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're describing a different kind of vehicle.
That's right. Yeah.
The vans,
Yeah.
no van like the 18 van.
The 18 van.
A-team.
Oh,
18.
18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Van.
BA Baracus.
Yeah. There have been
Mr. T.
I've come across, I'm sure y'all have too, on the internet. Like there are these these car shops or custom vehicle shops or whatever who have gone and remade a bunch of those vehicles. So
Yeah.
A-Team van or even the DeLorean and things like that. And they're just the Griswold's station wagon.
Oh, wow.
Those things are pretty
The
fun to
wood
see.
paneling on the
We
side.
had one of those too. So.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Did it have seats in the cargo space?
Road
all
in the
way
back,
Yeah.
facing the wrong direction. Yeah. All the things. Yeah, we did.
Man, those are the good old days.
It was.
Yeah.
We had
My
a great-
grandparents had a van like you were describing in one of those Volkswagens, but it didn't look like the Griswolds. It was a newer model, but it had that backwards facing seat in the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With only the waist seat belt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Real safe stuff.
The conversion van though, that was something to envy if
was.
you or your parents had that.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Like you said, the TV, the curtains.
Curtains.
Yeah,
on
the
the
curtains,
window.
little round table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
had that.
My grandfather's had like it was tall, so it had like the camper bed over the top of the cab too.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh nice. Yeah.
It was blue.
Man.
I think it was a Dodge.
Don't get me wrong. I appreciate all the technology and all the innovation in our vehicles now. But I mean, cars back then were just, I don't know.
No,
That's kind of fun to see
built
that,
better.
that kind of stuff.
I still think we grew up in a really fun era. That was
I
great.
agree.
It was fantastic.
I remember my dad had surgery on his elbow when he was, I don't know, I was probably 6, and he drove a standard. His truck was a standard transmission, so he had to teach me how to shift it. Now I didn't drive, all right, and I was a little kid, but every time we went somewhere, because his arm was in a sling for recovery or whatever, every time we went somewhere, I'd just sit in the middle seat of that truck and straddle that gear shift. And he would just shout numbers at me, and I'd be like, I was doing the right arm's job,
That's awesome. That's
And
awesome.
that was the beginning of learning to drive a stick, was just literally two-handing that gear shift and moving it around. Oh boy, we did some pretty good damage on that transmission. I bet. What do they say? If you can't find them, grind them.
That's exactly what they say.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, like we said, we do have a lot to cover, so I guess we'll cover some business here as well. Congrats to members of the PR team, Chad Hooten specifically, who has launched a new podcast.
Yeah.
We've got a second podcast at Farm Bureau now. It's called Agriculture. Emphasis on those are kind of two words there. So talking about farming and aspects of culture that go along with that. We launched that on Tuesday. I believe there's 5 episodes in this first season.
Okay.
and episodes are released weekly on Tuesday mornings. You can find that if you go wherever you like to listen to podcasts, type in Arkansas Farm Bureau, where obviously you'll see the Arkansas AgCast there, and then, or you can choose to listen to agriculture or listen to both, and give that a listen.
Yeah,
Some
should be a good one.
Yeah, we've also got links on our social channels, things like that, so it should be pretty easy to find there. Let me see. Also, since it is May 2nd, as Brian mentioned earlier, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And this is something that obviously a topic that's important and a topic that is sort of growing, I feel like, every year, the idea of mental health. And especially we've seen a good focus on this within the agriculture community. And American Farm Bureau actually has a campaign or a program called Farm State of Mind. And that program is meant to help build awareness, but also reduce the stigma of mental health and provide access to information and resources to farmers and ranchers. For instance, within this Farm State of Mind program, there's a directory of counseling services, support hotlines, podcasts, videos, content and resources like that. There's also a peer-to-peer support group through a program called Together All that's free of charge. All of this is supported by an Arkansas voice, a farmer by the name of James Dixon. You may have seen us help tell his story in the past in videos and things like that. But James Dixon has lent his testimony and personal experience to this Farm State of Mind program to help others. And then Arkansas Farm Bureau is also offering resources to counties with information sent out to county offices. If you want more information about that, you can reach out to Jennifer Craig here in the state office. You don't have to be an Arkansas Farm Bureau member to take advantage of these resources that I'm aware. And even the American Farm Bureau resources, all of that's available regardless of your status as a member. And we're going to talk about this and keep sort of promoting specifically that Together All program throughout the month of May. We're also going to have an episode dedicated to mental health later on this month as well. Yeah,
a deep dive.
Deep dive episode that sort of covers this topic. We're going to invite James Dixon. We've invited James Dixon, who I mentioned earlier, to come in and be a part of that episode, and some others. So looking forward to that and providing some good information and resources to you all.
It's like you said, it's an important topic that's traditionally or has been traditionally very difficult to talk about.
Sure.
And we all deal with it on a daily basis, if not. And then, a farmer may deal with it more so on an annual basis, given how things are financed, production, and how things turn out at the end of the season, and being able to get some of that stuff off your chest is pretty important.
Yeah.
More so than it ever has been.
Yeah.
And I think margins are always getting tighter in agriculture.
Yeah.
So it's harder and harder every year to make a buck, especially when you're trying to feed your family.
Yeah.
But like Jason said, we'll dive deep into that. But kind of moving on, this month, May also marks the beginning of the farmers market season.
Man, yeah.
So May 1st is usually the unofficial start date of farmers market season. So I would assume that this weekend is probably going to be ramped up quite a bit. And also keep in mind that strawberries have been coming off very early this year.
Heard a lot of talk about strawberries.
Yeah. We're also talking to Amanda McWorth, horticulture specialist for University of Arkansas Extension Agency.
Okay.
Said we're on that downward end of the peak of strawberry harvest. So if you haven't gone out and gotten your locally grown strawberries wherever you live, I'm sure there's a farm close.
Yeah.
Within at least an hour or 30 minutes, please go out and see some of our small producers. And also, speaking of strawberries, the governor declared yesterday May Beef, Egg, and Strawberry Month.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah. So we were able to go out to the Department of Ag yesterday and celebrate that, and a really, really good deal that promotes strawberries, beef, and, of course, eggs me being biased with the strawberries.
I
But
saw some cooking going on.
yeah,
there,
I
too.
think it was the Cattlemen's Association cooked burgers.
Saw some
And
eggs
eggs.
being cooked.
Yep. I had a burger with an egg
An
on it.
egg on it?
I did.
Buddy,
Yeah.
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it was really good. The eggs were cooked perfect. So were the burgers.
Yeah. Nice.
And the strawberries, I think, were from Barn Hills.
Oh,
And
okay.
they were
Yeah.
really good, of course, as always. So, yeah, get out there, support some local producers, local farmers, aka small businesses,
Yeah, buddy.
and it doesn't taste any better than straight out of the field.
Yeah, we've got we sent over somebody for that event as well over to the ag department. So if you go to our social channels, you'll see photos from that and find some more information about that event yesterday as well. Speaking of events in the ag department, they're working on public meetings for input into the Arkansas water plan, making updates about that. We've talked about those updates plenty. Talked about it last week too. But this is just your reminder to go and be a part of this public input process. And yeah, make your voice heard. The meetings begin next week on Monday and will take place May 6th through the 10th. All the meetings will be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm going to give you the locations, and you can go and find out where exactly in town those will be. So again, beginning May 6th and running through the 10th, all meetings are from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meetings will be happening in Jonesboro, Fort Smith, Magnolia, Stuttgart, and Little Rock.
Yep.
Those aren't necessarily in order. We just wanted you to know what towns or cities those are happening in. For more information, you can go to agriculture.arkansas.gov.
Yep.
Get the full schedule, all the deets, and that good stuff. So go make a point to be at those meetings next week.
What about a planning progress update? You got that for us this week?
I do. We're steadily climbing, man. We'll see what the rain that's moving in today and this evening will do. I know there was a lot of rain this morning down in the southern part of the state as well. But the headline here is that we remain well ahead of the 5-year average. And last year, again, that may slow down with some of the rain that's happening at the end part of this week and into the weekend. And I know there's some rain coming in mid next week too. But anyway, we'll take a look at where we are right now. So corn, we're at 80% planted with corn, and 59% of the crop has emerged. Let me back up. This is as of Monday's report from USDA.
Okay.
So we've made progress this week beyond. Rice, 83% planted, 54% emerged. So keeping up right there with corn. Soybeans, we've got over half the crop in, 56%, with 37% emerged. Cotton at 14% planted, 1% emerged, and peanuts are 12% planted. So you can see we're well on our way, over half on soybeans, rice, and corn there. So yeah, we did publish a ride along in the combine with Robert Stovall while he's planting. I think that was last week we put that out.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, go check that out at Arkansas Farm Bureau YouTube, Facebook pages, and kind of get a good look at where we're headed with planting season.
Yeah, it seems like corn and rice kind of shot up. I don't remember what last week's numbers were, but I did see some emerged corn last weekend coming back from McGee.
Yeah,
That was maybe a foot tall.
Oh, really?
Somewhere,
so
that's
up
maybe a
there,
little
up there.
less.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, I think last week when we reported, we had seen like we were 2 or sometimes 3 times ahead of the 5-year average, and then we jumped again this week another good bit. So
yeah,
it'll be wrapped up before we know it. That's for sure.
That's crazy. I think Brian said earlier we're already in the 5th month of the year.
Yeah, by Memorial Day, I mean, replants and things like that. Notwithstanding.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be hard to see how we're not done planting by Memorial Day.
it'll be interesting to see when harvest starts.
Somebody's cussing me out there. They're like, "You better be knocking on wood."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, which means harvest will be.
I mean, I did see that Little Rock. It's literally supposed to rain here for like the next 5 days.
Oh my gosh, it's kind of depressing.
So
actually,
I
to
don't
think
know
about.
what that means for the rest of the state, but
Last weekend we were kind of in the house all weekend
Yeah.
because of rain. This weekend's gonna be the same.
Was it last year that was so late getting planting started because of all the rain and everything?
Yeah, there was definitely some delays last year. I think 2 years ago was probably worse if my memory serves correctly. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, at this point, but we're moving along. That's for sure.
Mother Nature's going to do her thing no matter what we want. So,
amen.
What about the news? Y'all want to go ahead and move into that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, I'll start us off. There's been new developments regarding highly pathogenic avian influenza, or H-2A. So, as always, we are here to keep you up to date on the issue. If you remember a little bit last week or week before, gave an update on when it broke out. So, the H5N1 virus was recently confirmed in a dairy herd in Colorado, bringing the total number of states to 9 and the total number of herds in the country to 33. Also, viral particles of the virus were found in samples of milk from grocery stores recently. Now, keep in mind, it is very important to make it clear that the live virus was not found in the milk.
Right.
Samples, but only particles of the killed virus through pasteurization. This is important because it shows that pasteurization is working like experts said it would. However, it does indicate that the virus might have been impacting dairy herds long before experts originally thought. So keep that in mind.
Makes sense.
And I'll just preface that the current milk supply is safe.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely.
Don't run out the doors and get crazy.
Yeah.
So, moving on, the FDA has also begun further testing on eggs through inoculation tests, which can determine the presence of the virus as well. Currently, the FDA is still stating there is no risk to the commercial milk supply, like I said earlier. But if you're a fan of unpasteurized milk, milk, of course, carries a very high risk. When we discussed the issue a few weeks ago, it was believed that the virus had also infected a person in Texas who worked closely with cattle. However, new information gives evidence that the person was infected by a different strain of the virus.
Oh, interesting.
And is not connected to the initial outbreak within a dairy in the same state. So another reason to think that the virus was moving sooner than what we had thought. With that, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, has issued a new order that requires testing for H5N1 before interstate movement of all lactating dairy cows, as well as mandatory reporting of any positive H5N1 test. The order goes into effect this coming Monday.
Okay.
So all you out there, keep that in mind.
Yep.
Also, USDA will start requiring that certain cattle and bison have electronic ear tags if they are to be moved from one state to another. The idea of electronic ear tags has been around for a while, probably since I've started here. But it seems like the current issue at hand has propelled this ear tag situation forward. It's not the reason for it, right? I think this is something we knew was coming, or thought was coming initially. This new rule applies to all sexually intact cattle and bison 18 months of age or older, all dairy cattle and bison of any age used for rodeo or recreation events, and cattle or bison of any age used for shows or exhibitions. Lastly, the Arkansas Department of Agriculture has issued an order restricting livestock exhibiting symptoms or testing positive for the virus from entering the state. So far, there have been no reports of positive tests within the border of Arkansas.
All right.
Lastly, like I said earlier, I wanted to provide an update. However, I also understand that we could dive much deeper into each one of these emerging topics, but we have a limited time, of course, here on the show. So if you have any questions, I would highly recommend reaching out to Jake Cartwright, who's our beef and dairy specialist here at ARFB, for more detail, as well as Jared Garrett. He's our small ruminants and poultry expert here too. So those two have been on top of this issue, and feel free to contact them. I'm sure they'd really appreciate to talk to you about it more if you're interested.
Exactly. And not only did I, you mentioned that there's been no H151. Sorry, I'm going to get the H5N1 in the state of Arkansas. But I did read this week that we have not had a case of avian influenza in the state in either a commercial herd or a backyard flock since December 23.
Yeah, I don't know of anything recently.
That is at least has been reported. So
yeah.
So good news for the state of Arkansas. Obviously, good news that the milk supply is safe and all that too.
Say that, but also keep in mind that if it's moving, I mean, it was found in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And this originated in Texas.
Texas, yeah.
It was found in Michigan, and all these things are connected back to this dairy in Texas. So, not saying it's going to show up here, but there's nothing stopping it from doing so.
Right.
Or shouldn't say that either, but there's a possibility. There's always a possibility. It's not impossible.
Yeah, that's right. Well, use your best procedures and protocols and abide by the rules, really.
100%.
I mean, all right. Well, I've got some good news from the Arkansas rice industry, care of George Jared with Talk Business and Politics. In 2023, Arkansas's rice crop bounced back in terms of acres, adding well over 300,000 acres planted versus 2022, and the USDA officially has the harvest tally for Arkansas at 1.4 million acres last year. That accounts for roughly half the rice grown in the U.S. Over the past decade, seeing back-to-back growth in acres of rice in Arkansas is a rarity. But according to Jared's reporting, there's a good chance that we see that happen again in 2024. He talked with Grayson Daniels of Riceland Foods to get the scoop, who predicts a bigger crop this year as long as the weather holds. We were talking about that just a few minutes ago, weren't we?
Yep.
USDA forecasted that rice growers produced a 33% increase last year when compared to 2022, calculating that the rice yield in 23 was forecasted to be up 140 pounds per acre, and from the previous year rather. Milled rice exports were up 18% last year, and total rice exports, including milled and rough rice, were up 12%, according to Riceland Foods. And early estimates show that U.S. export numbers are set to exceed last year figures this year. Rice is the most consumed food in the world. Roughly half the world's population eats rice on a regular basis. Last year, more than 540 million metric tons of rice were consumed, according to USDA. About 4.6 million metric tons was consumed in the U.S., and most of that rice came from domestic sources. And for a little Arkansas rice farming history here.
Okay.
Rice was grown in small amounts in Arkansas as early as the 1840s, according to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. Mass production of the crop started after 1902, when Lonoke County farmer William Fuller sparked interest in the crop after he set up an experimental farm in Carlisle. The crop is grown in 40 of the state's 75 counties. The vast majority is produced in the Arkansas Delta region, of course, in eastern southern parts of the state. So good news for rice farmers.
Hey, I mean, you may need to fact check this because Lonoke County, Arkansas County is home to rice.
I know it, buddy. Hey, I know. I'm stepping on your toes.
Stuttgart is the rice and duck capital of the world, dude.
Now, look, I know the first soybeans were planted in Arkansas County.
Yeah, I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got your due.
I'm just joking, man.
All right. Well, look, we mentioned it earlier, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and our friends at American Farm Bureau have brought back their Farm State of Mind campaign.
That's right, Jason. A healthy farm or ranch is nothing without a healthy you. And the Farm State of Mind program has a lot of helpful resources, like the new Together All online community.
Together All is a safe, anonymous, online peer-to-peer community accessible 24/7 and moderated around the clock by licensed mental health professionals. The platform is available to farmers, ranchers, and members of their family who are 16 years or older.
All you need to do is set up an anonymous profile to gain access to a network of peers who can listen and offer support. In addition, if a farm family needs counseling services, those are available for no cost thanks to the Farm Family Wellness Alliance.
You know, to learn more, if this sounds interesting to you, you can visit farmstateofmind.org or type Farm State of Mind in your search engine. All right, let's get back to the news.
All right. Well, I can't say that this is just going to be exhilarating information.
Will it be helpful?
It will be incredibly helpful.
All right.
It's something that I feel as if our membership needs to know.
All right.
And of course, you can probably guess there's a few things that I like to talk about here commonly.
Yeah.
And one of them is H-2A labor issues.
We call him old H-2A McMahon.
That's news to me. But we're gonna move right along.
All right.
All right. So farm employers have been given some new protections for H-2A workers. So last week, the U.S. Department of Labor, or DOL, announced their final rule detailing a series of new protections for H-2A employees. The new rules listed here, I'm just going to read them off.
Okay.
So hold on.
Take notes.
Yeah. So the first one, adding new protections for worker self-advocacy. This rule basically states, it's a long paragraph, but it basically states that workers are not hindered in any way, shape, or form to organize.
Okay.
Not quite unionize, but and an employer can't keep them from talking to other support advocacy groups for farm workers.
Okay.
And then the second one, clarifying for cause termination. Details on how a employee is terminated from their current position. So workers employed under the H-2A program have the right to payment for 3/4 of hours offered to a work contract, as well as housing and meals until the worker leaves outbound transportation. And if the worker is a U.S. worker, to be contacted for employment in the next year unless they are terminated for cause. The final rule clarifies that an employer only terminates a worker for cause when the worker either fails to comply with employer policies or fails to perform job duties satisfactory after, in most cases, the transparent application of a system of progressive discipline. So that's going to put a lot of new steps into, you've got to check boxes before you are to, as an employer, before you can let go of an employee. Next, making foreign labor recruitment more transparent. The final rule imposes new disclosure requirements to improve foreign worker recruitment chain transparency, provides additional information about the nature of the job opportunity, and bolsters the department's ability to protect workers from exploitation and abuse. These new provisions require employers to provide a copy of all agreements with any agent or recruiter they engage plan to engage, disclose the name and location of any person or entity working for the recruiter who will solicit prospective H-2A workers, and disclose in the H-2A application the name, location, and contact information of the workplace's owners, operators, and managers. Telling you this stuff is just exhilarating information. Last three here, or four, ensuring timely wage changes for H-2A workers, which helps prevent an adverse effect on the wages of similarly employed workers in the U.S. Next, improving transportation safety. The final rule includes a seatbelt requirement to reduce the hazards associated with the transportation of farm workers. If a vehicle is required by Department of Transportation regulations to be manufactured with seatbelts, the final rule prohibits the operation of these vehicles to transport workers under the H-2A program unless each occupant is wearing their seatbelt.
Got it.
So kind of think about, how do you manage that?
Yeah.
Last two, preventing labor exploitation of human trafficking. This final rule clarifies that employers are prohibited from holding or confiscating a worker's passport, visa, or other identification documents, which is a tactic used to exploit workers. I haven't heard of that happening here in the state. I've heard some rumors of across the country that's happened before.
Sure.
And lastly, ensuring employer accountability. The final rule updates procedures for discontinuing employment services for employees that have failed to meet the Department of Labor's requirements. Relatedly, the rule requires states to discontinue services to debarred employers. So those are the ones that the Department of Labor had listed on their website.
Yep.
I didn't go through all that in detail. There's a lot more to it. I just kind of covered the surface.
Yeah.
But lastly, I want to state here is that the final rule is effective on June 28th, 2024, so at the end of next month. However, the H-2A applications filed before August 28th, 2024 will be processed according to the applicable federal regulations as in effect as of June 27th, 2024. Applications submitted on or after the 29th of August will be processed in accordance with the provisions of the Farm Worker Protection Rule. So this has kind of stirred the pot quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially on the employer side. It kind of, puts a little bit more regulation and pressure on the employer So I'm interested to see what kind of. There's already been quite a bit of pushback nationally.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of comes down the pipe, but we'll keep you updated as well.
Well, certainly part of some of those challenges that we've discussed, as you mentioned, we talk about H-2A a lot here.
Yeah.
And really sort of separate than some of the recommendations and requirements or recommendations that we saw out of the ag working group, the ag labor working group, that we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I should add that we're going to send out an email to our divisions, commodity divisions, with this information in it.
Oh, good.
And just kind of a explanation of what's going on and where you can find more information.
Yeah.
So be looking for that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I know that'll be helpful information. And certainly if you're working with an agency or a recruiter or some sort of helpful, I know a lot of our folks who use H-2A labor have a partner or a vendor that they work with. Hopefully they can help you navigate some of that as well.
They will.
All right. Well, listen, we promised at the top of the show an update on Farm Bill, and I've got it for you. We have we saw some forward motion this week on the Farm Bill. Certainly a welcome development both here at home and in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a few of the details for you, hot off the press, you might say. We've seen a flurry of activity out of D.C. in the past couple of days, and the Farm Bill is at the center of that action. Congressman G.T. Thompson released a title-by-title overview, what he referred to as the bipartisan policies and priorities included in the 2024 Farm Bill. This, of course, was from the perspective of the House Ag Committee. On the other side of the Capitol were Farm Bill details released by the Senate Ag Committee Chairwoman, Senator Debbie Stabenow. Senator Stabenow unveiled a piece of legislation titled the Rural Prosperity and Food Security Act, which contains, and I quote, more than 100 bipartisan bills and puts the 2024 Farm Bill back on track to being signed into law by the end of the year, end quote.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. So to summarize, you have a title-by-title overview document from the chair of the House Ag Committee and a full-scale piece of legislation from the chair of the Senate Ag Committee here. Let me remind you, Republicans control the House Ag Committee while Democrats control the Senate Ag Committee. Important to remember. There are a lot of details, including in the more than 100 pages of documents in all. The Arkansas Farm Bureau team has already begun reviewing both and will certainly continue doing so. We expect Congressman Thompson to release a full-scale piece of legislation, sort of like Senator Stabenow did, in the coming weeks as well. What does this all mean? The biggest takeaway, I think, as I mentioned before, is that we've seen a sudden uptick in activity around the Farm Bill, and that's certainly encouraging. According to our government relations team, especially. Our team tells me that this is a good indicator that we can still get a Farm Bill done this year, but we also know the legislation has to be the right legislation for farmers. We'll certainly continue coverage here and plan to take on a deep dive episode as the picture becomes a bit more clear on this. For now, the takeaway is progress towards a Farm Bill in 2024, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, this is the biggest step in finishing a Farm Bill this year that we've seen so far. But wasn't there an article published in the DemGaz with President Wright giving some information
just this morning?
Thoughts on it?
So these two sort of on Wednesday morning, Congressman Thompson's overview and highlights document was released. A couple hours later, Senator Stabenow's bill was released on Wednesday morning. And then we got a call from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette asking us to talk about that. So President Dan Wright got on the phone with Alex Thomas yesterday to talk about these sort of first glimpses into a Farm Bill. And then that story published in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette this morning. So if you had a subscription or if you have a subscription, go check out that article. You'll see Dan's comments and some other analysis as far as sort of what's in there, what's not, what areas are looking to grow in funding, so on and so forth. Like you and I were talking about this yesterday. it's great that we see forward motion.
Yeah.
What's not here in a lot of cases are the details.
Yeah.
What we didn't see in that coming out, I'm paraphrasing, of course, a lot. So, and American Farm Bureau came out and said the same thing. They're like, look, we're glad to see progress here. But our real reaction will be when we see what ends up being in what looks to be the final piece of legislation.
Negotiations haven't started yet.
Right.
So if we weigh too heavily on what these comments here and what these comments are over here, what does that mean in a month from now when they do start negotiations?
Could be wasted breath.
Yeah.
I mean, not to be.
And like you said, I think, I just hate to repeat it again, but it's a step in the right direction, although some of these things may be a little broad.
Yeah.
And they're not specific. That will come.
Yeah, and Senator Stabenow said she's like, and I'm trying to quote this from memory, so forgive me if I don't get this exactly correct, but she said, I don't have plans to move this legislation to a committee vote.
Yeah.
Like, I know that we're not there yet, but they got to get the ball rolling. There's got to be something to react
and
to.
She's planning to retire this year. Like, she's not.
Yeah, she's not going to run for re-election.
I think one of her goals is to get this thing passed.
Yeah, and Congressman Bozeman, who's the ranking member, on that committee, he said he was glad to see her put a proposal out. So I again, the big takeaway in all of this is forward motion. It's May. We really want to see this bill done this year.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is a sign that that's still possible.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, all right. I think we're finally done over here, believe it or not.
You think so?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not even going to ask you where we are on the.
Was
on
a
the
lot
clock.
of stuff. Yeah, and don't even worry about the clock. You need to be more concerned about.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, if we didn't have time for it today.
Wishful thinking.
So we're not going to get to talk about the Razorback baseball team?
If you want to.
It'll get cut out.
Yeah, it will get cut out.
Yeah.
Once Matthew gets hold of it.
True. So I'm gonna let you guys pick.
Oh, we're at Dollar Trivia.
You're
I forgot.
Dollar Trivia. So you know.
I think I went first last time.
You did?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I was telling y'all before we got started, I'm kind of into this history mode right now. I'm reading a nonfiction book, and I'm going to steal a little bit of McMahon's thunder and go history.
All right. History it is. Which city hosted the Olympic Games in 2000?
It wasn't Atlanta.
No, because that was 96.
That was 96. No.
I think we went to.
Are you talking about U.S. city or just city in general?
That's kind of cheating.
It wouldn't have been in the U.S. 2 years in a row. That was the year we went to Japan, but I don't know the city.
Is it the Summer Olympics?
It just says
Olympics.
Osaka.
Well, Beijing was like 8 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
The year after that was London. Or was that the Olympics before that was London?
Yeah.
Was it London? No, it wasn't London.
No.
I don't know. I guess I'll go with your guess.
Yeah.
Sydney.
Yeah.
Huh.
Sydney.
So it was summer in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Those Olympics were summer, so that would have been winter, I would assume.
Maybe I
don't know. We don't
couldn't
have the
imagine them
details.
doing Winter Olympics in
that's
Sydney,
weird.
Australia.
Not a whole lot of skiing.
So maybe the question more is like, when was the 4 year span, right? Because really it's every 2 years because two
Winter,
alternate.
summer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we overthought that.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. What's your category?
I'm gonna go business ethics. Is that not a choice?
It's like, is that a? I don't remember that being on the list.
I'm going to give that one an automatic fail.
Yeah.
So,
that's a Billy Madison quote. So
I did not know that.
very good. Very good.
I want to go. What are my options?
Arts, science, entertainment, history, general, geography, just to name a few.
Let's go geography.
Geography.
Yeah.
Which is the largest continent?
Asia, right?
I'm not going to argue with that.
Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is
Look at you go.
very good. I won't give you all the details. We're running out of time anyway.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
We'll leave it at 2 for today, I guess.
pick one more.
Oh, okay.
You got one
Challenge is
right, one
on.
wrong. So
Watch me go crazy. Science.
That was my other option.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not that crazy. Time will tell.
okay.
Stump ourselves.
Yeah.
What kind of plant stem is soft and green?
Oh,
That really narrows it down, doesn't it?
yeah. Not a rose.
It could be anything.
I
Soft
think
and
there's a
green.
word for this.
It has a term.
Yeah, that's what I'm. And there's no way we're gonna get that.
I have no idea, man.
Herbaceous.
Herbaceous.
Yeah. Swanson, Swaney.
Samsonite. There was the whole time. All right. Well, note to self: don't pick science again.
Yeah, it's more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
All right. Well, hey, that wraps up the news for this week. Thanks for following along with the Arkansas AgCast. We're grateful for you taking the time to watch and listen.
Remember, you can catch new episodes of the show every Thursday afternoon. Find video episodes on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the audio versions wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to subscribe and leave us a review when you have a few extra minutes. The Arkansas AgCast is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau. I'm Jason Brown,
And I'm John McMinn.
and we'll see you next week.